Hi guys, welcome back to The Bell. I'm your host, Gogetso. This podcast is a podcast that celebrates women in sports, entertainment, and the creative industry. So today, we're going to talk about all things sports, all things basketball with Nompumelelo Ramatsoga. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Nompumelelo Ramatsoga.
Okay, what does Nompumelelo Ramatsoga do in the world of basketball?
In the world of basketball, right now, I'm a freelance commentator.
A freelance commentator, I like that. But not even that. Did you also part of the Fast Break podcast?
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm a freelance commentator, part of the Fast Break podcast, and chairperson of the South African Women's Basketball Association.
You do a lot. Okay, so we're going to talk about that, right? But before that, we're going to talk about like you as a child. Who was Nompumelelo growing up? What did she like? When did she grow up? Yes.
So I've always loved basketball. Like, basketball's always been kind of my thing. I think I started playing... I arrived at St. Mary's DSG in like grade 5, and then I started playing because Mrs. DeBrain
So you started playing in
was
primary
there.
school?
I did. I started playing in primary school, so that was always my love. And yeah, I was just a really energetic kid that loved to play sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, originally lived in Limpopo.
Yes.
You know, lived in Lubafo until I was about 9, went to Mitchell House, and then moved to Pretoria. I was like in Stanship for 2 years, and then DSG for like 8 from when I was
That's crazy.
in grade 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a kid who really loved sport, you know, from the very beginning. I think I was in boarding school when I was 6 years old, and that was just because I would get left by the transport every day because
So your parents were like, you know what, just stay right there.
Well, it's actually the school encouraged them, like, just put her in weekly boarding, because I was literally every day. My parents would have to drive all the way from the Wahomu to come fetch me in Polokwane because I would miss the transport, and it was because I was playing. You know, so they were just like, okay, let's do this. So I was in boarding at 6.
Oh, okay. And then, like, at school, what kind of subjects did you like? What kind of student were you?
So my other love outside of basketball was actually drama.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was a big fight with my parents. Didn't understand the whole taking drama as a subject.
Course, yeah.
Wasn't real. So yeah, I did the maths, the sciences, but drama was one of the things I loved, absolutely loved. Which is why it's kind of interesting now going into a little bit of broadcasting.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a full circle moment for me, because I
now
thought
you're
like
on camera.
yeah, I thought that part of me was almost done and gone, and I would never be in that sort of space or industry.
Yeah.
And so now to be making my way through this broadcasting landscape, it's quite interesting.
I like that. And then, so now, did you always know that you're going to make a living off of like basketball commentating, being, you know, the president of the Salva?
So I always knew that basketball was going to be a big part of whatever I did.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily knew. I've always known. So I don't know. You know, I've always kept basketball. I've had a couple of different careers.
Yeah.
So I do a couple of different things, but basketball's always been there. It's always been a consistent in some way or another. You know, whether I was playing or coaching or now with commentary.
Oh, okay. But then, look, I'm trying to understand, like, in the basketball space, right? When you were playing, when you're coaching, did you ever think like, okay, I can take this to a pro level and I want to do that in South Africa?
I didn't know how.
Okay.
Let me say that. I don't think you...
But the thought was there, like,
Yeah, the
I
thought
really
was
want
there.
to do this, but I don't know how to get there.
Yeah, the thought was kind of like, okay, I know I want to do basketball. How do I do it? How do I get about like making that my day to day? And it is, you kind of have to carve out your own path.
100%.
You know, you have to take risks, you have to bet on yourself. But it's really just making the space sometimes.
I like that. So in high school you played, okay, primary school you played basketball, high school you played basketball, you started even coaching, right? And then in varsity, when you were looking for degrees, what was the degree that you wanted to do?
Yeah,
And why?
so when I originally,
Yeah.
I started coaching right out of high school. So I knew my matric year that I wanted to go to the US.
To do what?
To play ball.
Okay.
So I knew like off bat.
So
that's
was
what I wanted
studies
to do.
secondary? Like the main thing is to play ball and then studies are...
So I knew I was going to study anyway.
Yeah.
I was always going to go, you know, into college or whatever. But I knew I had this like burning desire. So I remember I was on the trick back actually, and my tax deposit was due. And at that point, I didn't have an offer yet for the US. I didn't know
did you
where
pay
I
for
was
the deposit?
going. And so I had said to my mom, you know, give me till my birthday. I was turning 18 on work. I was
Yeah.
like, give me till my birthday to decide. And then I decided, you know what, don't pay the deposit. I'm gonna have faith that this is gonna work out, and there's gonna be some sort of something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be able to go. Something's gonna happen. So I didn't pay my deposit, and then that's when I started coaching, just in the right out of high school.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, let me make a little bit of money. I'm gonna need the pocket money. So and then it came through, and I ended up at a junior college in California, which was a great time. I spent 2 years there. And even then, I was still coaching. I was coaching, a regional.
So wait, you were playing and coaching?
Yeah, but the coaching was kind of like for fun. It was, my teammate and I coached one of the regional NJB teams, which was great, like under 10s. So I always kept in touch with that. And then when I came back and I went to Tux, and that was it was a big...
But wait, what did you study there?
I did an associate degree in business.
Okay.
So it's always been... My parents, I think I've always loved psychology, but my parents were kind of like, yeah, what does that look like,
It's so tough for black parents.
They were kind of like, what does that even look like, So I was like, okay. So I started out, and also because they have liberal arts education, you can really take a bunch of different classes and feel it out. So I had a bunch of things that I wouldn't have taken if I was here, for instance.
Yeah.
Because here, the curriculum is very focused on a speciality.
100%.
Whereas there, it's like the first 2 years is really very broad. So as much as I have an A in business, it's very broad. So when my time there ended, it just felt as though I needed to kind of think about that education aspect more.
Yeah.
So at that stage, I kind of figured out my mind for the game. I thought was pretty good, but physically I wasn't doing as great as I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So all the offers that I had were kind of like really small schools, all on the East Coast. And I just made the decision that I would come home and play here and then study here as well.
All right.
Which is then I ended up at Tux.
And you were studying psychology there?
No, I wasn't. I did a BCom in business management.
Oh, goodness. And then, so what led you, because you are a psychology graduate, right?
Yeah.
So what led you to psychology?
So I've always loved psychology.
Okay.
I just didn't know how it was going to play into it. And coaching is actually the thing that made me love psychology even more.
Okay.
Just interacting with young people, getting to know young people and kind of what they're going through,
Mm-hmm.
right? I started this thing where I almost started noticing behavior that needed intervention. And then I was like, actually, I want to be on the other end of that.
Okay.
I want to be in the therapeutic space. And so when I was working full time, that's when I started doing psychology part time. And then I quit my job at St. Benedict's because I then wanted to do psychology full time. So I went into my honors year and my master's year, and then I was just doing some consulting, and then
All right. So for someone who wants to study psychology, specifically sports psychology in South Africa, what would you advise them to, in high school, what subjects would you advise them to take?
That's a very big question.
Yeah.
I don't think I even know. Because I got here in such a different path, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have an undergraduate in psychology.
But knowing what you know now, how would you advise anyone?
Knowing what I know now, I would just keep it broad, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Like it doesn't, you don't know. I didn't know what I wanted to really do in high school. I can't say I really
That thing
did.
is so tough. I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Having to know what you want to do for the rest of your life at 18. That's so much pressure.
Yeah, keep it broad and always take one subject that you love. And for me, that was drama, like I was saying. I took math, science, whatever, but drama was the one thing that was for me.
Okay.
Like it was my subject that I chose, and it was really for me. And it was such an important part of my path and my journey because it was such a, I had two places of solace in high school, and that was basketball and drama.
Oh wow, that's poetic. That is so poetic.
I appreciate that. Never quite thought of myself as being poetic, but
wow. Okay, so then I want to talk about the basketball space in South Africa, right? Mm-hmm. You've been in this space for quite some time. As a woman, as a black person, what would you change in this space?
Wow, that is too big a question. I'm not sure I can answer it at all. I can't. Yeah. I'm not sure I can answer all of it. There's a lot to be changed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what would you improve?
Everything? What wouldn't I improve? I think grassroots development needs improvement. I think elite competition needs to... There's just too much.
Yeah.
And if you look at the entire picture, it can become really overwhelming. So you almost have to pick a niche where you can make a change, And that's almost kind of my own motivation with Salva is that that's a space I can make a difference. I can make a difference in young women's lives. I can make a difference in women's lives. And so you almost have to pick something that you want to focus on in fixing and changing, because otherwise
you can't do everything.
You can't do everything, and if you look at the whole picture, you can't. It's too big. It's too difficult.
So, as a basketball player, as a basketball coach, as someone who's worked, in the media industry for basketball, what have all those experiences taught you about yourself? Let's start with being a player, and then being into coach.
I think being a player built so much of who I am.
Okay.
I think that it gave me almost a single-mindedness, if that makes sense. It taught me about discipline, and it taught me about motivation, and it taught me about failure and disappointment as well.
Wow.
I think some of the biggest lessons I took from being a player were about failure and disappointment and how you overcome that. I think those were some of the most important lessons for me. I read this. There's this. He's a psychologist and he works with the Toronto Raptors, and he had this quote the other day, and it was comparing elite athletes to business success, right?
Oh, wow.
And it was like, you need some of those characteristics that elite athletes have in order to be successful, and that's it for me. Being a player taught me all the things I needed, and almost all the skills, if I could say that I needed to be successful at anything I wanted to do, but also to overcome failure, and to have resilience and to be tenacious in chasing what it is that I want.
And then as a coach, what did that experience teach you about yourself? And why did you stop coaching? Why did you retire?
So coaching...
How long have you been a coach? Sorry.
So I coached for 15 years.
Okay.
From when I was 18 till I retired last year, end of last year. So coaching really taught me about empathy. When I say coaching really motivated my path towards psychology even more, coaching really taught me about that, about empathy and relationships and, so many things. Because it's one thing when you're a player and you're on the receiving end of that, but to be on the other end of that and pouring yourself into other people really teaches you about empathy.
Okay. And as a commentator?
To remember to be kind.
Yeah.
Is one of the things.
Okay.
It's that reminder that it's you can be so critical of people. As a basketball person, I can be casually critical of people.
I feel the same actually.
Yeah.
Because in the media, because as a fan, I'm like, what is this guy doing? But as a person in media, talking about them and people are listening, having a huge platform, you need to be kind to them because they are people.
Absolutely, humans, right? There's someone on the other end of what it is you're saying. And so
it's a full human being.
You can still be honest without being cruel. You can criticize.
Don't be rude.
Without breaking.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a great lesson for me. It's also taught me to be out of my comfort zone. It's funny because I'm saying I love drama, but the first time I actually had to be in front of a camera on live TV, that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a struggle, but I love it. I do love it. And I didn't think that I could find something else in basketball that I loved as much as coaching. It was hard for me to retire from coaching, but it was great to find something else that I love in that space.
And how does one start a career as a freelance commentator in South Africa?
I don't know that I know that.
I mean, you are. So, how would you advise?
So you start off making yourself available. So the first couple of times that I did commentate was probably, during St. John's games. That tournament was broadcast. And what was then called School Sport Live.
What would you tell a high school student who really wants to be like, I want to do what you're doing right now as a commentator?
I would say learn the different aspects.
Okay.
So I would say look into what commentating is fine, but learn the game, right? I think the best commentators globally know the game and they evolve with the game, right? I think in coaching and commentary, even in playing, you've got to be a lifelong student, right? There's no place where you've arrived or you know enough.
Okay.
In all three of those spaces, the game's constantly evolving. You've got to evolve with it. You've got to learn with it. You've got to have an in-depth understanding of the things that are happening. So it's learning the game one, but it's learning as well about what broadcasting space looks like.
Okay.
You know, I don't think I had any idea what it really looked like, you know, but learning about what that space looked like. What are the skills that you need to do that? You know, when I look back now, I've acquired a range of skills in a way that I didn't necessarily think about at the time, but I've acquired a bunch of skills that allow me to do what I do. So it's very difficult to say to someone, how do you replicate this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's learning about those spaces.
Okay. And what degree would be best suited, you know, for someone who really wants to focus to be a commentator?
I have no idea.
Really?
I
was
can't even tell you
thinking
that. I mean, like, my educational background is in business and psychology, you know, so I don't even have an educational, I can't give anyone advice of like, if you want to get into, no, I don't know how, you know, it's just something that I got into.
I like that because most people that I know in this space, right, they do have degrees in like your finance, you know, even medicine, but they're not necessarily practicing that.
Yeah.
They are just in a different field, but you know, what you learn there does actually help with what they're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I think one of my biggest things is that you're never too old to reinvent yourself.
Oh yes.
Ooh, you know, and
that's an Oprah.
It's so important. It's such an important thing in your journey. You know, if I had decided I want to coach basketball for 50 years and been scared to move or been scared to take the leap and quit my job and go into psychology, you know, it's one of those things. Like you're never too old to start a new path, to reinvent yourself, because everything you've learned pours into that. Yeah. Exactly. It contributes to whatever your new thing is. So yeah.
I like that. So your position at Salba, what has that taught you about yourself? Being the president of the South African Women's Basketball
Chairperson, not president, chairperson.
Chairperson.
But
what's the difference?
I don't know.
Oh.
We've just in our constitution it says chairperson, so I'm the chairperson.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's taught me about one, collaboration through spaces. I think the most beautiful thing about our organization is that so many different women from so many different walks of life who've really benefited from basketball want to give back to the game. You know, there are a bunch of people in our organization I would have necessarily had personal relationships with, but because this common goal to improve women's basketball and to improve it for the next generation of female basketball players, we've come together. And to see that level of collaboration has been incredible. So it's taught me about that. And it's taught me about, I think I've learned even more about myself, you know, as a leader. I think that's been really important.
What did you learn?
What have I learned? I think one of the biggest things I've learned in that organization is probably to be, not learned, but more like I've been reminded about, I don't know what the word is. I want to say patience, but I don't. You know, I'm a pretty decently patient person.
Yeah.
But I think it's taught me about patience because it hasn't been an easy process, and it hasn't been a process that's happened overnight. You know, in my mind, and even as a collective, we have these big dreams that we have for what the organization's going to look like in 5 years, for what the organization's going to look like just next year. And it's that patience of like doing the work now that's going to get us to where we want to be, you know, in the future. So yeah, probably patience. You know, I think I'm one of those people that like has a million ideas a minute, you know, and has to like sift them and you know, refine them and that sort of thing. And so I've had to be patient with the process.
Okay, I like that. You know, for like most of the things that you've done, right? It's all about giving back, working with people and stuff. So when it's all said and done, what would you want to be reminded as, like your legacy?
Wow, legacy. I think that if anything, I want to be remembered for having made a difference. And that doesn't mean
any, like, just a difference.
Having made a difference in individuals' lives.
Okay.
Like for me, I can meet someone today and, you know, we can pour into each other. But I want that person to walk away from that interaction feeling like, oh, they gained something. And if I'm working with someone in therapy or as a coach or as anything, I want to be able to make an impact in that person's life. And even if I never speak to them again, to know that like I made an impact. So if that person thinks of me, it's in a way that oh man, the time I spent with them actually positively contributed on my journey.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. What would you say you were brought onto this earth to do?
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I don't know that I know how to define that per se. I think for me, I try and follow my purpose all the time.
Okay.
But I think that purpose is really like, sometimes I just got to let God lead me, Like sometimes it's like,
So
you sometimes have a plan.
Yeah.
And sometimes that plan gets thrown out the window.
That's when faith
all the
comes
time.
in, yeah.
You kind of have to be led almost as well. But I think purpose is about people.
Oh, wow.
I think purpose for me is about other people as well, and making a difference, like I've said, and it doesn't have to be the biggest difference.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be a small difference, but yeah, it's about people. We're at the end of the day human beings. We love to relationship.
100%, yeah.
And so yeah.
Okay. So now getting to the last part, right? Let's talk about adversities. What kind of adversities have you faced in this space, and how did you overcome them?
What adversities haven't I faced?
We're actually talking about this, right? Like, yeah.
There's so much adversity to be faced in the space. There's one that the basketball space is difficult to begin with. That you have to almost carve your own path as it is right now.
Yeah.
But two, there's being a woman, right? There's being a woman in male-dominated spaces. I think that's been one of the toughest things on my journey is being a woman in spaces is not always easy. And there's this patriarchy tries to convince us. I've said this to you before. Patriarchy tries to convince us that there's only space for one woman at the table, which is, it's not okay,
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you are the woman at the table, it's almost like you want to have more women at the table.
Yeah.
But there are women who will believe that there's only one space for one, and so they make it more difficult. But I've been so blessed to have mentors that are incredible. I've had so many incredible women who have poured into me, and so that's been absolutely amazing, and that's helped me to overcome a lot of things, But yeah, there's so many challenges. My biggest thing is you have to remember your why.
Okay.
Right. So if you have a why for anything, when it gets hard, you remember your why. I just came through this master's journey with psychology, and that's been one of the hardest things I've experienced. But holding on to the why I got into it and the why I did it has been that. And basketball's been the same. What is your why?
Okay, I like that. And then last question, which women would you like to see on the Bell podcast?
Oh, that's a great one. I love that. There's so many women I'd love to see on the Bell podcast.
Give me like 5.
No,
3.
I don't know if what?
3.
That's so many. Okay, I'd actually really love to see Amanda Dlamini.
Okay.
I'd love to see you have her. She has a great story. I'd love to see the head of sport from UJ, Nomsa.
Okay.
Another great story. And I'd love to see Olusa Lumka, head of sport from Wits.
Yeah.
That's, I think looking into women who've trailblazed, but as they trailblaze have opened paths for other women. I love to see those kind of women. I'd love to see you do that.
All right. So thank you for your time with me. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it. Where can people catch you and Sauba actually?
So on Instagram and Twitter, I don't have Facebook, but it's at Nums14.
Okay.
And it's at SA Women's Basketball.
And then the website for Sauba
is www.sawba.co.za. Sauba.
Okay, and then how would you encourage people to join Sauba? Funny enough, actually, sorry, before you answer, funny enough, I just realized that most of the people that watch the show are male. So how would you advise them to join Salva or encourage them?
Yeah, we've said this from the very beginning. We're
Yeah.
a women's organization, but male members are more than welcome,
Yeah.
right? Because we do want male membership because we know we can't change
We can't do it
the
by ourselves.
situation on our own, right? Especially the girl dads. Like, I want to see more girl dads. You know, when Kobe passed, the girl dad thing was even
Yeah.
more big. But I want to see more girl dads get involved. I want to see more girl dads talk to us, become members, and be like, hey, this is how I can help out. Or how can I help out? And ask those questions. Because we always have room for people to do work. You know, as much as we have a great group, there's always room
Yeah.
for other people to bring capacity.
I like that. Thank you again, Mbumi, for your time. Guys, it's been the Bow. All the details that Mbumi just said, I'll put them down in the description box below. Again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. We'll see you guys next time, and bye.